Paige, I'm very excited to have you here on the podcast today, and we'll just get right to it. I would love it for you just to tell us what it is that you do.
Yeah, Catherine, thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here. I own a retail store called Fulfilled Lifestyle Co. And in addition to that, yeah, thank you. I also do business consulting for other small businesses. Uh, yeah.
Well, yeah, tell us a little more about your business because I love the title. That really kind of took me aback. So, or the name of it. So,
Yeah.
what is it that you sell?
We are a sustainable lifestyle company. So basically, we try to just really bring back the fulfillment to the consumption of what you're participating in and educate you on all the ways that you can live more sustainably
Oh
without
my
the overwhelm.
goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Now, is that the are these two roles, are they equal, or is that which one is like, or is one a side hustle?
Well, that's a great question. I've actually been trying to figure that out for myself. Fulfilled Lifestyle Co. is in a place right now where I am actually not taking a salary from the company.
Okay,
So
here.
I've been consulting for other businesses for a little over a decade now. I've owned several of my own companies. I used to own a children's clothing line. I've been
Oh,
in
cool.
retail for a really long time in management and other things, marketing. So yeah, I would say they're both equal babies to me. They're
Uh,
just two children that I have. So,
Completely understand. Completely
yeah.
understand. Now, that is super specific. I want to talk about your business consulting too, but your store is super specific. So, how did you get involved with that and, that sort of focus?
Yeah, like I said, I have a strong retail background, but my business partner and I actually met what was previously her store called Fulfilled. And
Hmm.
at the time, I was getting ready to launch my own retail company after taking a break from retail for a couple of
Hmm.
years. Um, yeah, and it was just something like divine intervention, really, the way that we came together. She had started in the back of a van as a refillery.
Love
Not
it.
sure if you're familiar with what that is. It seems to be catching on, but some people still seem to hesitate when I say refillery. Um, yeah, so basically you can come back into the store and most of the products that we sell on the shelves now, you can take them over to our refill bar and they are refillable. So you can stop buying your trash.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
I love it. It's everything's non-toxic, everything's as plastic free as we can find it. We actually import a lot of goods from Canada because the US doesn't have as strict of standards yet.
Right.
Guess we're on our way, but
Oh,
yeah.
that's so interesting. So, is it mostly like fragrances and lotions and body products, or is it more than that?
It is. So like I said, we're an entire lifestyle company. So everything from what you use in your kitchen to what you're putting on your body to the clothes that you wear, we have a sustainable option
Oh
for
my
you.
goodness.
Yes, and everything is synthetic fragrance free, no endocrine disruptors, no parabens, no phthalates, anything like that. It's as clean as we can find it. We often say if we wouldn't put it on our babies, we're not carrying it in the store.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I will definitely have the link to this so people can check out your store because I think it's super cool. How did you end up getting into retail?
Oh my goodness, that goes way back.
It always does.
It always does, right? My
Restaurant
plan
work and retail always goes way back.
oh my gosh. I actually had planned on going to school for psychology. My plan was to be a psychologist. And during that process, I was working my way through school and I just really excelled. I loved it. I loved working the sales floor. I was working at a clothing company. I love clothes.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I just loved it so much. And I had so many opportunities. I was working with a really great company called Buckle.
Oh,
Um,
yes, yes.
yeah, and they had amazing training and support. And honestly, I was getting paid more at the age of 19 than I ever thought I would make. So
Yeah,
I thought I
yeah.
was in school. Yeah, and it just
Well,
took
it's
me
so
a
funny that
minute.
you said that, you were majoring in psychology because, I mean, isn't that retail in a nutshell? Just psychology.
Yes, absolutely, and marketing and all the
All
things.
of
It
that.
served me well the little bit that I went.
Oh, that's so funny though that you kind of, had this little soft spot for this field, which sometimes is a love-hate relationship, and that you have then, just kind of spun that into your own business, which is really kind of cool. It's something that you're obviously very excited about too. So that let me ask that too about your business consulting. So just we can give it equal credit. So what sort of company would you be your ideal client?
Really, I work with, it feels so broad, but passion-driven entrepreneurs, small
Okay,
to
just much like
medium-sized
yourself.
businesses. Yeah, I mean, really, they say that the person you're helping is you 5 years ago, right? And that's pretty true.
Yes, 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 it is because we've already, walked the rough road, and we can offer some, some bits of wisdom to other people, and to
Paying
let
it
them know where
back.
some of the pitfalls are for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. That is so cool. Now, my next question, of course, is what did you do as a child when you were young? Just think about summer, feet hit the ground. What were you super, super passionate about?
You know what's funny is I actually really loved playing store.
Oh
Right.
my God.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, it was destiny. It was destiny.
It was destiny. It really was. I was weaving fate as I was playing. I loved playing cashier and checking people
Uh-huh.
out, and then I loved pretending that I was helping you find what you were looking for. And another favorite thing of mine was my grandmother would actually go to the thrift store, or she'd come home with these bags of clothing from, hand-me-downs from friends. And my girlfriend Ashley and I at the time I would organize this grand fashion show, and I would put together our outfits, and
Oh
I
my
would style
goodness.
both of us and then make everyone sit in the living room and watch us come down the grand spiral staircase. So, yeah, I liked performing and playing store.
No, I think that is so fantastic. And I think, we've at least some kids dabbled in that idea of like, having some sort of retail establishment. Sometimes it was a grocery store, sometimes it was, in your case, a clothing store and things like that. So when clothes came in from the thrift store, was that something that you would repurpose at that point too? Like, hem it or sew it or
Not quite
switch
at
it
that
around
age.
or
Yeah, you know what's really funny? I somewhere in the middle of this story, like I mentioned, had a children's clothing line, and that was like that didn't other than sewing in like the seventh grade for an extracurricular, that was not on my radar. No one told me how to do that. And the clothes that my grandmother brought home from the thrift store was really more about styling them. Yeah, I wasn't really repurposing them at the time. I was still quite young.
So when did that kind of when was that switch thrown where you're just okay, you had the clothing store and actually, I might want to know a little more about this children's store too because that's a little specific as well. So what made you decide to start a children's line?
That was
Was
also
it
fate.
were you inspired by were you inspired by your own child or because usually it's something like that?
I've really found, especially as I've gotten older, that creativity is always a reconnection back to myself. And right after
Oh my
I
God, that's a
had
quote. That's awesome. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. After my son was born, I was actually going through a really tough time, and I was struggling with some postpartum depression
Mhm.
and really trying to find myself again because even right before I had my son, I was only 23, and so I was kind of wondering like, who am I? What matters to me other than my career? And I had been in fashion so long, and I was on this break from my career and didn't really know who I was without my work. And so as I was battling through that, I started just kind of asking myself, like, what did I do as a kid that brought me joy? And
Mhm.
can I do it again? Can I recreate it in some sense of the word? And I remember visiting my grandmother and my aunt growing up. And she always made me pick out a craft from the craft store.
Oh
And
my God,
at,
that is so great.
at
That's
the
so
time, I
great.
was like, oh, but I just remembered, I actually really had a great time doing that. So I'm just going to go to the craft store and pick some things up. And I was making odd things here and there. And we had a, a woman living with us at the time from Spain, and she told me about Etsy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she said, you should put some of these on Etsy. I was like, what is that? So, long story short, I began dabbling in Etsy and Pinterest and all the things, and I had about $100 to work with. So, I bought a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of supplies and I bought a $15 sewing machine off Craigslist, taught myself how to sew a little tiny pair of leggings because at the time there were no cute baby clothes.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, the rest is history, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's great about children's clothes, at least anymore, and now more so maybe with women's clothes too, but especially children's clothes, you could be so freaking creative with it because, they want, sparkles and patches and, and you could come up with like little outfits that are like adult outfits, or you could do ones that are like totally, you could totally baby it up. And it's just such a wonderful range of things that you can do. I could totally see where that would just be such a fun outlet for you. And
Yes.
it's also a really great thing to mention too that if people are out there with this creative idea that Etsy's still there, and if they want to just kind of throw things up there for a while and just see what happens, it could just be something that you've created at home, or it could be from a kit that maybe somebody else wants, because some of those are pretty labor intensive. Automatically, we were talking about the craft store. The thing that I thought about, and I don't know if you've ever done this, is when you used to be able to make those rugs with the little hook thing. Did you ever?
Yes, yes, I
Like,
love those.
those were so labor intensive, and
Got the
but
little beads that you would like melt together.
yes, yes, yes. I mean, just so many things. I love that you were kind of crafty too, because I was as well, just mostly just see if I could do it, sort of thing, if anything else.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get to the sustainability part. At what point did you decide, what, I want to do this again? Your friend was already kind of on this track, but then you decided, what, yeah, I'm going to go all in on the sustainability part.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it was actually in the midst of owning my children's clothing line. I had owned that for about 7 years, and I was noticing that most of the women that were coming to me, I was actually developing really great relationships with and getting to know them, but then also recognizing this pattern of overconsumption and starting to really have this internal battle with myself of how much I was really pushing them to
Hmm.
continue to overconsume. And then also really noticing, at the time that I was transitioning out of my children's clothing line, I was a single mother and I had just moved and I had moved my studio back into my home so I could work from home more,
Hmm.
and I just felt buried by the things. And I just remember feeling so overwhelmed by the amount of physical clutter and then battling with this idea of pushing over consumption. And I think that was really my breaking point of saying, like, do I even want to be in this industry anymore? Like, what really matters to me? What is the legacy that I want to leave for my son? What do I want to teach my son? Is it really
Hmm.
just about the
Hmm.
clothes that you're wearing? There's
Yeah.
so much more to this story. So that's when I really began exploring that. Um, and then I would say, like I said, I took a couple years off, and that's really when I began consulting because I was really connected to this deeper story of like following your dreams, really pursuing your passions and pursuing fulfillment rather than
Hmm.
just like empty success. And that was a journey I had already been on for some time. But yeah, I think when my daughter was born in 2021 is really when I was like, I can't shake this feel like I still love fashion. I still love things. I'm a Libra rising, I'm Venus ruled. I love all the beautiful things. And I've been a stylist, a designer, a marketer. It's just in my blood. And so I really was determined to figure out a way to connect with my consumption habits more consciously.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually loved how you kind of painted a little bit of a path as to how you got here too, because, and I will say just really quickly, there's nothing more than creating the next generation to make you think about, what are we doing going forward with things as far as waste and the earth and clothes, if people don't know. That is a huge, huge issue when it comes to just waste and things like that. Having been in retail myself for a little bit, I was very familiar with, stuff that people would just be like, okay, well, we're done with that now. Just tell all the stores to throw that away. And we're like, what? Throw it away, you know? And I worked for the limited brands for a while, and they, they kind of went back and forth with some of that stuff because they would have huge sample sales, or some of that stuff would get pulled back in, and the employees could buy it, which I thought was fantastic. Versus there are literal pits that people will put clothing in because they have no other place to put it, you know. So it's just like a landfill sort of situation, and that goes with product, that goes with clothing, that goes with a lot of things where they just don't want it to get out, you know, on eBay or something where people are selling it for a profit. So they're like, we have to destroy it. And some things were just destroyed because they probably should have been destroyed because it was not a good product or whatever. But it's people don't realize how much of a waste it is. So I love that you're trying to combat that a little bit, and how your path led to that as well, because I think it's a very admirable road to go down, that if we all just do even a little bit, you know, that it makes a big difference. So I appreciate you trying to make that attempt in the world, because it is definitely needed more and more. All right. So with your, I want to go back to your consulting business for a little bit, because I would like you to kind of describe who your ideal client might be.
Yes. So I am actually in the middle of reworking this for myself. So bear with me here. But, ideally, this is someone that kind of began a business with just a passion,
Yep.
and it organically grew. Maybe they're 5 to 7 years within their business, and they're kind of in the weeds, they're looking, what's that quote? They can't see the forest through the trees.
Mm-hmm.
And they've done really well for themselves, but now maybe they're starting to feel a little bit more overwhelmed. They're starting to feel a little disconnected from what the beginning of their path was, what really got them started on this journey. And so I come in and I kind of give an overhaul to all the different ideas. I think when we start getting overwhelmed by our business, or maybe we've been doing it for a while and maybe we're feeling a little on the edge of burnout, we start grasping at these like creative bursts of new ideas that we have, or ways to evolve the business, right? Because we're really grasping at a reconnection to the passion that we had when we
Oh,
first started that
perfect.
business.
Yes.
Yeah. And so really I go in there and I'm there to listen to all of these grand ideas that you have, take a collection of what you've been doing the past 5 to 7 years, and really see what's working and then see what's not, and help you weed that garden and plant new seeds.
I love that so much, because I myself had this conundrum, but I see it very often where entrepreneurs do have an amazing idea, an amazing passion, and they create a great job for themselves. And then at some point, that job becomes a company, and they have to kind of switch their mindset a lot, because it's like, I can't just be me anymore. If I'm going to keep pushing this, I have to actually own the fact that I'm the president of this situation.
Right.
And I'm going to have to hire people to help me, and it's turning now into a company. And that frame of mind is way different than if you're the person in the trenches doing the work, making the things, doing the services and things like that. And either path is fine, but there does come a point where if you're deciding, you know what, I do want this to grow bigger, it's great that they can reach out to somebody like you, which is essentially the outside eyes looking in and just saying, you know what, you do have a great idea, and here's how we're going to make it help you make that grow. Because you don't know. All you had was the idea and the passion. And unless you went to business school, you did it like probably how we are doing it, where you just kind of make it up as you go along, and then you get to finally help out somebody later and just say, oh yeah, don't do that.
You're like, help you.
Exactly. Let me just intervene here a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you are clearly out there trying to change the world, but I do want to know, what is it that you do to unplug? Because, a lot of the stuff you do can tend to be, well, you do a lot of creative things too, which is awesome. But a lot of business is left brain activities. But at some point, you have to kind of just wash all of that away and do something that is completely different, just to kind of recharge. So what is it that you do to recharge, to get, some sort of another twist of creativity or fun in your life?
I As much as my husband often has to push me out the door, I
Oh,
love
yes.
being in nature and grounding myself. That's very important to remind myself, get a breath of fresh air. But I love playing with my kids too,
Yeah.
and teaching them to do fun projects, whether it's a coloring book or my daughter and I the other day made some clay jewelry that was super
Oh,
fun.
cool.
Yeah, so getting to experience creativity through their eyes is really a fun refresher for me.
And that's a good mention too, because I think sometimes when people get a little stuck, all they have to do is look at their kids or their grandkids in some cases and just say, what are they doing? Because they're still at that age where they don't have that responsibility. They still want to have fun. And that fun can be anything from, like you said, the clay jewelry to, like maybe the kid was like, let's just randomly go out and get some milkshakes. I mean, that is something that you would not necessarily justify as an adult. But when you think about it from a kid's standpoint, you're like, oh my God, that's a great idea. And then when you do it, it's like, well, this was liberating. This was really fun. Not every day, but just little things like that are just, on a whim or it's just such a level where there's just absolutely no responsibility. You're not accountable for anything. And you just have true fun with something.
Absolutely.
So that's so very cool that you're doing that. Um, and I'm also going to just put a little, mention here too. I'm a triple cap, sun, moon, stars. So
And Mars, don't forget your Mars
Mars,
day.
I don't forget my Mars. I also have a ruling Saturn somewhere in there. So, and we had a whole conversation offline about this. And also too, I do that. I like get kind of involved in that because it's just kind of fun. It's just a really fun, makes no sense, no logic, and my day is full of such logic and facts and data that it's just like, oh, well, what if this were to happen? It's just really fun. It's just really fun. Um, so Paige, thank you so much for being on here. I think you are just a perfect example of how you could take a passion and make it into a reality and make it, a life that is, not only sustainable for all of us, but sustainable for your family too, which is really kind of cool. And I love how you just completely unfolded that. So I appreciate you being here and sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me, Catherine. It was a pleasure.
And I will have all your information in the notes so people can find you. I almost forgot to add that because I want to have all the links so people can find all of your stuff. So your links to your consulting business and to your retail. So because I think both are really kind of cool.
Thank you.